going to go to our next session now. Raise your hand if you're kind of tired from this week. Yeah? It's like the room's filling up. We're gonna keep going here. And we're running a little behind, but we're going to stay as close as we can. So from ambition to implementation, setting the course for 2026 and beyond, our great friends from the World Climate Foundation, led by Flora Bittencourt, Jens is also here, and Time Magazine, are going to now take us on a walk through the coming year. Welcome, Flora.
Thank you, Stan. It's amazing to be here. So cozy, energized place. Thank you, Whale Energy, to host us this morning. So my name is Flora Bittencourt. I'm Brazilian and Chief Impact Officer for the World Climate Foundation. Last year running all our COP30 strategy, which I have a lot of proud with what we did on the ground in Belém. I went there, I think, more than 10 times last year, working with impact on the ground. We delivered a hub to the city. We renew a house from scratch. We have Stand and Hub Culture as a partner there as well. So many things, so many partners. World Climate Foundation goal is really connect private sector with the climate action agenda, delivering acceleration for transition to a low carbon economy. We want to share, so I want to invite Jens to be with me here. I think I will talk and then pass to you. So we had a very good COP30. I'm proud of Brazil also hosting this event. But for the private sector, I can say that we have positive outcomes. We had the global climate action agenda really configured in a real framework with 6 axes that can drive us in a really collective effort on how we start to act, how we go from conversations, from commitments to real implementation. And this is what we are aimed to keep doing at our World Climate Foundation this year throughout our impact coalitions. So we have beyond the 6 axes of the action agenda, the COP30 outcomes came with 120 plans to accelerate solutions, with a really clear roadmaps to us to walk together. And also, the presidents of COP30 are really eager to look to the roadmaps away from fossil fuel that wasn't entered on the Mutirão agreement in Belém, but has a real work to be done this year. And the roadmap to combat deforestation, right? So we have a lot of work to do this year. And for me, just to finalize, transition is not a rupture. We cannot think that from one day to the other we will be in a world where economy is really care about nature, is really giving up of GDP or profit, but is a transition. And to create this transition, to create a common pathway where we go with most stakeholders and understanding their needs, we need to create roadmaps. And this is what we are doing throughout our coalition. So I want to invite Jens to say some words, and then we will invite incredible guests to have a chat.
Thank you. Sorry. Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much, Flora. I would like to present some of the cases that we worked on for some years in terms of mobilizing capital towards specific solutions across the world. First, I want to say that World Climate Foundation today started way back in 2010, or actually 2009, when we had the COP in Copenhagen. At that time, actually, business and finance were not really welcome inside the holy chambers. There you had the governments, you had the NGOs, but business and finance were sort of delegated to the weekend in some other rooms. So the reason for World Climate Foundation today started by wanting to put business sort of on the table and also finance on the table, realizing that many solutions come from business indeed, and much of the capital available is in the private sector. And I can say that we are also very pleased with the partnership with Stan and the Hub Culture, which actually started way back then. So thank you very much, Stan, for a very good and long-lasting partnership with you and your organization. So what I would like to focus on just briefly is how we have worked, basically starting with first the Danish government. The Danish government got a new a social democratic government some years ago with the ambition of wanting to position Denmark as a global green superpower. Denmark is just a small nation state by definition, so how do you do that? Out of that came definition of Denmark, not just as a government, but also as business and also as Danish business, also Danish finance. And out of that grew a partnership, especially between the pension funds and the government, where the pension funds, they committed a vast amount, actually 10% of their balance sum to climate and nature investments. And for them to do that, the government promised that they would provide the right market regulation for them to earn their profit or fulfill their fiduciary duty. So this is an example of a systemic public-private partnership. And at the Climate COP in Glasgow in 2021, all the Nordic prime ministers got together and presented a commitment of $130 billion to invest in climate and nature before 2030. That is tracked every year, and I can say that it's well underway. And especially that those investments have gone to sort of structured investment in wind and solar and energy systems using models that are developed in California, in the Nordics, and spread around the world. So what we're doing here is basically trying to take that capital and structure it sort of sector by sector or asset class by asset class and rolling it out internationally. And when you look at the picture today, it can be quite an experience coming to Davos. If you go up and down the promenade this year, I couldn't find one place where I saw the word climate. I couldn't find one place where I saw the word sustainability. And that was not the same last year or the year before. So there's a dramatic change in narratives. Not just on the main stage inside the World Economic Forum, but also even at the street level. And I think that is quite extraordinary, because when you look at the real world, there are really good things happening. When you look at energy, and just say in the climate space is 2/3 of the answer, or a little over 70%, then you can see that in 2025, there was about $3.3 trillion invested in energy. 2/3 of that, 2.2 trillion, is invested in clean energy, and only 1/3 is invested in fossil fuel. And you can easily see, and I say it's way too late, and unfortunately we get global warming, but you can see that it won't take many decades before clean energy is sort of running over fossil fuel. So there are some good points. In the energy side, I think what we have to focus on is emerging developing markets. So Africa, South America, etc., parts of Asia, to channel money to that space. And for example, we are also working with the Nordic governments under a project called IMCA, where we have $500 million in public finance to de-risk private sector funding or private sector-run funds that we put out in tender, for example, in adaptation in Africa, etc. And that kind of blended finance instruments are necessary for channeling capital there. And then there's the third area, it's the nature area, which is still very sort of immature in terms of developing investment models. So there has to be a lot of work on doing that, and we are supporting that work through our Nature Investment Coalition. Thank you.
Thank you. Alô? Alô. So thank you very much. I just want to change to our roadmap slide. So we are really happy. He's not in this presentation. Okay, so just to invite my guests, I want to invite you all to be with us in our roadmap. So we have the World Climate Summit throughout the main convenings of the climate ecosystem. So we have in London, the World Climate Investment Summit, alongside with the London Stock Exchange. We will have the first São Paulo Climate Summit this year. In São Paulo, we have here our Ambima partners that are already creating this event with us. We have New York Climate Week, where is our nature-focused event as well. We have the World Climate and Biodiversity Summit. We will be, for the 4th time, on the COP of Biodiversity in Armenia and at COP 31 in Turkey. So you are all welcome to join us in all these discussions and work that we have to do together. So to keep going, I'm so honored to invite our moderator, Justin Worland, from Time. Thank you very much. We were together at the Web Summit, right?
Yes, in Rio.
In Rio, yes. Little bit more colder here. Yeah. And my dearest friend, Luana Ozemela from My Food. So I wish you all a great conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Thanks for laying the ground. I guess just maybe to set the stage a little bit, a reflection of mine. Obviously, a very odd week in many ways. This Davos. It's weird to go from not just last year, but from 2020 when the promenade was all climate ESG to where we are now. And then, of course, behind the scenes, I feel like a lot of the conversations that people are having are in some ways the same as the conversations we've been having for years. At the same, that's good. That's also bad in a way because we need to be accelerating. We need to having new conversations. And so this dialogue, I'm very excited to sort of end my week on it about how do we move forward, how do we implement in this year. And so maybe just to start for both of you, if you could just give us a little quick overview of what you see as the most promising area for implementation in 2026, both from an investor side and the investors that you convene, and then from a corporate side, and anything else you might want to add. So maybe we'll start with you.
Yes. Is the microphone on? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, I think that scaling, if you take the energy field, scaling solar, scaling wind, especially you can see that solar and wind, especially wind on land, is about half the price per output unit than fossil fuels. So I think that is extremely important to keep on investing in those areas, and especially shifting the investments over to emerging developing markets and de-risking those investments. And then I think that the push that we see from Brazil it's hard to say the TFFF. The fact of starting with a strong government push on nature-based solutions, especially on forest, I think that's important.
It's great.
Good morning, everyone. So iFood, just to give you an overview why perhaps we are participating in the forum and what concerns us, or perhaps the main messages that I'm taking back to my team. We are 8,000 people company, the #1 food delivery in Latin America. We have 500,000 workers, which we are very much concerned with workers' condition. That's why here in the forum, the WEF just launched the principles of good work in the platform-enabled economy, and we are part of that, contributing to that. And in the sustainability space, what I saw the major shift from last year when I was here, it was decarbonize first and build the energy mix that is needed to decarbonize, and a lot of discussions around AI and being energy intensive. This year is like AI first, build the energy mix that is needed for AI to really expand in terms of infrastructure and capacity, and it doesn't matter what the energy mix is, even if it's even if it's carbonizing, emitting. So, and I was in the discussion with Secretary of Energy, Wright, of the United States, and I think it's important for me to share this with you because it was a closed-door meeting with just the Chief Sustainability Officers network of the World Economic Forum, and his narrative was people first. Energy, it's the #1 priority for our national security, and it's better to have fossil fuel emitting than nothing, right? And the narrative that he's pushing around, which is very powerful for a lot of people, is this narrative of people first, that people need energy. And that's what then made the discussions of climate really lose space. And for us in the corporate world, this is very, very scary, very, very worrisome, because it's this type of narrative that then permeates strategic discussions around, should we give more focus to maybe future of jobs and AI, or should we give focus to decarbonization, launching EVs, and really focusing our resources on the climate. And I think I'm saying all this because these discussions here in Davos really infect the mood of the leaders in the corporate world. And I think and I wanted to just paint the reality first before I say what maybe I'm taking home and that we will probably pursue in the coming year, is that we need a narrative of progress, that there is no progress in humanity if we don't have, first of all, commitments and targets to decarbonize of CO2 emission reduction. The second thing is this transition needs to be equitable. It needs to work for everybody. I think one of the biggest challenges or criticisms that Europe faced this year here was that they did this without really the realization of the promise of green jobs, of reduction of energy prices, and of also doing this transition without impacting the environment. So the transition needs to be equitable. We need to do this well. And the third thing is that energy is important. It needs to be efficient, and it needs to have a bigger mix. But I'm not too convinced about the nuclear push that people are doing this year, and the announcement that has been made. So for us in iFood, the strategy, and I'll tell you more after, it's really combining those three things. We have targets to decarbonize, we have targets to increase earnings of the workers that are using our EVs, the EV strategy that we have, and we have also targets to create a more efficient logistics operation. The three things need to happen at the same time for it to really be a successful approach to all that we do.
Okay, mindful of that we have limited time, I want to just follow up just quickly, because I think that Secretary Wright conversation is interesting, and I also want to ask about, in that context, what you can do moving forward. So, but I guess there's sort of two parts to this question. One is, one of the reasons I like to get out of my home, which is Washington, D.C., which can be an odd place to live right now, is because you can see everything else happening around the world, and that the U.S. context is a particular context. And I wonder, how is it that hearing that from him shapes your decisions on the ground in Brazil serving the domestic market? And then the second question is, in that context, where are those opportunities for implementation in 2026?
Yeah, it shapes in a way that we can see where the criticism is coming from, and we can just reinforce research like Professor Carlos is doing, that Tasso is doing, that it's a reality. The world is getting warmer, and carbon is not, as he said, something that is not harmful, right? So the opportunity for implementation is just really continuing the journey that we have embarked. We moved away from carbon credits to really having targets to reduce our emissions. We do about 2 billion deliveries every year, and we recognize that we do have a very big responsibility here in order to influence Scope 3 emissions in our ecosystem. So, and we did this by really focusing on the short deliveries in terms of ratio. We have a target to really make about 60% of our deliveries clean in the next 10 years. We have signed with SBTi in order to have an evidence-based target validated. And we are doing this while we also increase workers' earnings. So we have a program called iFood Pedal. It's an e-bike expansion via rental in partnership with Tembici, which is the #1 also micro-mobility company in Latin America. And we are very happy to have taken this announcement of expansion and commitments to COP. And that's what we are going to continue doing. We are not going to change because of the narratives that are here, but we recognize that this has to be faced with a counter-narrative that is even more powerful.
Great, great. I know. Do you want to comment on this?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think that we should be very happy that COP30 was in Brazil. I mean, not all with COP30 was perfect, but COP30 Brazil has put two things on sort of on the global platform. One is nature, that's very important, and the other thing is multilateralism. So we get a more diverse dialogue also in the future. And we just take, for example, an example of like wind energy. The problem is not so much the demand. So if the demand for wind goes down in the US, there's demand for wind in France or other parts of the world. It's more the supply side, right? So that multilateral discussion, I think that's very important to sort of in the context that you so elegantly phrase around the narrative.
So then thinking again in the spirit of moving forward in this year, how should the multilateral discussions build the narratives that, or help combat the narratives that we've been talking about? And what's the best way the multinational, it's Friday, okay, it's Friday, that the multilateral system and dialogue can help combat those narratives?
It's just a matter of also framing the whole context and putting like the awareness and of the front runners of the world, for example, China, other areas, and also draw from the experience there and scale some of these models that you have there.
And then maybe just on the investor side, I mean, you brought up in your first presentation blended finance. You brought up different models. I mean, I guess what is the model that's best fit for this moment? Are there potential, specific mechanisms or structures or collaborations in finance and for investors that would be good for 26?
As I said before, there's really good efficient power, PPA models, etc., and solar and wind. And I would say scaling that and maybe not focus so much on nuclear. I agree with you. It's maybe has a too big place at the moment. So scaling what is already proven profitable, because you have to be profitable at the moment in your investments, and then of course trying and experiment more with these blended finance model, where you often use public finance to de-risk. That's necessary in the first stages of investing in energy, but also nature. It's very capital-intensive investments you're talking about.
From the private sector, we anchored a $50 million fund in Brazil called EV Capital Fund. And this fund is essentially a collaboration among various corporations that are interested in developing new technology on EVs, batteries, on recharging, on all sorts of various things that needs to advance, but not necessarily are advancing at the pace that we want in Brazil. So the fund is essentially recognizing that these technologies are changing on a daily basis, and that we need as corporations to really invest in them, foment them, and have them available. So this partnership will probably be launched in the very near future. We have already a second anchor, which allows them for the fund to start operating. So our hope is that, for example, motorcycles, electric motorcycles, haven't really picked up in Brazil because of their costs, because of also the volatility on the technology, and which did not give stability and allowed us to really think a strategy for heavy manufacturing in the country. So we're still heavily dependent on China. And so we are very, very happy that the corporate world is coming together to really invest in electric micro. It's like mostly focused on light vehicles, two-wheel vehicles.
We have 5 minutes or so left, and maybe I would just end on this note and ask you each to reflect on, if you fast forward to 2030, how do you hope this moment might be remembered? Of course, there is constantly a pendulum from this 2020 peak ESG on the promenade moment to where we are right now. How will you hope that this moment is remembered around these themes of implementation? And yeah, this will be a good note to close us on. Either of you want to start?
How do we want to remember COP?
Yeah,
you mean?
No, not
sorry,
COP.
Sorry.
So
How do you want to
thinking
remember
about this moment, right, of sort of extreme geopolitical challenge, the narrative, the mood that you're talking about, and then also this conversation about implementation. I guess I'm just asking for a reflection on what you think, what you hope might actually be accomplished, and how we might remember 2026. Whether maybe it's for this bad mood, but maybe it's for the actual implementation that happens underneath the surface. I don't know. It's kind of open-ended.
Yeah, the implementation, I think it's going, independent on the bad mood, right? But I think this year, it's going to be remembered about the hopelessness that this narrative of hate and fear has been pushing our people to react more than to plan and work towards, a cleaner future. So I just mentioned the closing of the event with Christine Lagarde. I recommend everybody who can watch the video to watch. It was very moving because she was surrounded by the global shapers, and the shapers expressed a hopelessness, and a really discomfort with everything that they saw. Where are we going to? And I think Christine Lagarde brought this message of hope, and where does she bring resilience in order to face scrutiny, crisis, and all that. So despite this year being a year where it's going to be a very stressful year, I think all of us need to be able to find that hope and that optimism somehow in order to build this counter narrative to everything that is happening. So I think the implementation is going to happen. It's irreversible, as you said, and like too much money has been put on this. Europe already is producing more clean energy than fossil fuel. So this is going to continue, but the narrative infects people, in people's mood. So it's very important that we keep saying and keep hopeful.
So there's always something good in dialogue and good in dialectism, I think. And I think that hopefully in 2030 we'll have a new narrative and a new definition of sustainability, a kind of sustainability 2.0, because I don't think that the ESG or the triple bottom line really have put sustainability at the top of the agenda. If we talk about the CEO level, which is sort of kind of the viewpoint you have here at the World Economic Forum, and hopefully we will have a narrative maybe focusing on resilience towards risk, which is typically when you need finance or you need to engage with investors, what they are looking at. You will have a narrative that focuses much more on transition. How can you move to more regenerative behavior, etc. And also a focus on the opportunities of the green transition. So I think hopefully we'll get to a new definition, a new language that's much more appealing and to the top level decision makers. That's what I hope, and I think will happen also.
Well, that's a great note to end on. I think out of the word rupture that Mark Carney used, there comes new opportunities for new collaborations, new narratives to form, and hopefully we'll look back at this as a moment where that happens. Thank you for the panel discussion. Thanks for showing up on Friday morning.
Thank you very much. Just quick but very accurate and strong conversation. Thank you. Just to close, I want to thank you all on behalf of World Climate Foundation. I can say, like answering your question also, Justin, this morning Ian asked me, what is happening with you? You are not so energized as you always are. And I don't know how I'm living this Davos week. I'm not energized. I'm not really believing that we are on the right way. I'm concerned, I'm scared. And we need to understand that we are on risk. You sharing what you listen on the closed doors is dangerous. And we need to be aware of this danger. I've been seeing Carlos walking in many places. How many years you were working on that? You know, I cannot imagine how you are feeling seeing all these steps back. So I'm talking with my heart now. We need to stand up, we need to fight and keep fighting and not normalizing this situation. Wish I could be speaking Portuguese now because I would be much more fluent with my emotions. But yes, I think energy is, we don't need to talk much, but let's stand together. It's necessary. Thank you.